All right, so Todd Sells, Director of Financial Regulatory Policy and Data. It's not much financial regulatory policy these days. It's almost all data. So that's why I'm here to talk to you guys. And Jason, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Absolutely. My name is Jason Hughes. I'm the Enterprise Data Architect at the NEIC. I am very much on the technical side of the Enterprise Data Platform and our data tools.
Cool, thanks, Jason. All right, so this is for talking about turning data into playgrounds, not puzzles. So we're going to talk to you about all the work we've been doing and are continuing to do in the NHC Enterprise Data Platform, the EDP. So outline, we'll talk about enhanced data utility. So the things that we're doing to make make lives easier for people who work with our data tables. So we'll talk about the append table structures and other things that we've done to make those tables more useful to people, and also go over table naming on the financial side specifically. Well, Jason will talk about high-level enterprise data platform structure and the Snowflake BDL business data layer database. So he's going to focus on those things. And then I'll probably kick back in to talk about some of the analysis tools we have, like ThoughtSpot and Tableau, et cetera. And then Jason will cover querying in Snowflake, which Snowflake is their user interface tool. And then I'll come back on and cover the Identity Data Portal. If you have any questions, please type those in chat along the way. And I believe at the end of the session, we open it up for audio questions as well. So we're happy to take questions all along the way. We're here to inform you of what we are doing and hopefully give you ideas about how what we're doing can make your lives better and maybe prompt ideas about how you might take advantage of what we're doing. So we're happy to have conversations about that. So please do ask questions as they come up. All right, so our highest level goal, pretty easy. We want to make your data life easier and better from what it's been in the past and the legacy systems that we use, right? So high level, just the creation of this enterprise data platform that we talk about, that Jason's living his life doing right now, right? So we've, on the left-hand side of the slide, is kind of the old school of what happened at the NEIC. You have all these separate database silos, right? Like FDR for when we collect the financial statement data, and MCAS for collecting the market conduct annual statement, and UCAA has its own stuff for the Uniform Certificate of Authority application filings, and then SDS and SURF and business, all these different databases that exist throughout the NEIC, and they're all in different technology. There are different places you have to access them to get access to the data, and in doing so, it's not always very easy or user-friendly to play with the different sets of data from those different silos of data. And so to address those types of things, to make it easier, to make the technology the same technology, one place, one location to get to it, and play with all those different data sets easier, we created what's on the right-hand side, simplistic picture, of just this box that's the Enterprise Data Platform. And we have the data from all those silo databases in that one box of the Enterprise Data Platform, right? So that's how we're making your data life easier and better just from a high level, just putting it all together, making it one technology and easier to get to and play with the different types of data sets, right? But then we'll talk specifically about how we're providing utility when you're going to be working with specific data sets, right? So I'm from the financial side, so I'll be talking about financial. I'll cover some things from market side as well, from my colleague Teresa Cooper, all the work that she and her team have done. But starting out with the financial, so in the legacy database of FDR, we used Oracle tables, and those Oracle tables are year specific. So for the assets page of the financial statement blank, the statutory financial statement blank, the assets page itself, right? You have an assets page in the life statement, in the property life fraternal statement, in the property casualty statement, in the title statement, in the health statement, right? And each of those assets pages by statement type would be saved as a data table by year. So you would have a life assets table for 2023 and a life assets table for 2022, just like you'd have a property casualty assets table for 2023 and a property casualty assets table for 2022, et cetera, for all the years. Every single page of the blank has its own table for that specific year. So if any of you were trying to play with multiple years of data in the Oracle database, you had to go join a lot of different tables together to be able to get to that different year data. So what we've done in one of the first things we did in bringing the financial tables over into the enterprise data platform was we collapsed all those year-specific tables. So we're calling those append tables because we take the live 2023 assets table and the live 2022 assets table and the live 2021 assets, et cetera, and we append them all into one table called life assets, right? And then that includes the data year, all the data years of asset data in that one single table. And to do that, we had to include a brand new column name in that L assets table for data year so that you can delineate data year 2023's assets data in the life statement type from data year 2022 life assets data, right? So that's one of the things we've done. So now if you're working with multiple years of assets data from life statement type, you only need that one table of L assets, and you can play with as much data as you want from all the different years, right? So again, making your data life easier and better, making it easier for you to play and do things with the data that you're going to need to do. For the table naming conventions, since we've done that, that impacts how we have to name the tables, right? We no longer have a single year's data in one table. So we dropped the calendar year from the table name. So instead of L 2023 assets, we now have L assets, just L assets because it's for all the data years, right? Right? So that's the first thing that we did. Here's a visual of what that looks like. Just because I'm better at graphical things. So live 2022 assets table, the live 2023 assets table, and all the other data years, right? We combine them together into this one live assets table called L assets. So besides bringing all the data years of data into one table, we also looked at how can we make the data tables themselves more user-friendly. And one of the things that we identified was it's very handy when you're looking at these financial statement tables to be able to have the English description of a row from the blank. So for example, we were talking about the assets table. So on the assets table, we know that line number 1 is bonds because that's what it has printed in the blank, right? But in the financial statement tables in Oracle, bonds didn't exist anywhere in that financial statement table for the assets. L 2023 assets did not have any column that could give you bonds as the English word for what line number 1 represents. Instead, you would have to go find amongst a very complex system of tables, metadata tables, you'd have to go find them, and then once you can even find the right table, you'd have to figure out how to get to the appropriate record that you wanted for your specific table and row that you were looking at. So we eliminated the need for all that complexity by just bringing in the column of row description from that metadata table, and that we've called line number label. So you have line number 1 for assets table, and now in that L assets table, you'll also see line number label, and then when you look up line number 1 in that table, you'll see line number label have the value of bond, and line number 2.1 would have the line number label of preferred stock, etc. So it's bringing in all those English language descriptions for the row labels so that you don't have to go get that anywhere else. It makes your life a lot easier when you're playing with that particular table. And it also lets you preview things. Like I used to have to look at the blank a lot to find out what those row descriptions were because I don't have the line numbers memorized, right? I'm like, oh Lord, what's line number 15 on the assets table? I better go look at the blank. Well, now I don't have to do that. I can come just look at the L assets table and pull up line number label, and I know what line number 15 is because I can have the line number label value right there. So again, making your data life easier and better with the changes we're making with data utility here. So here's a picture of that, kind of blurry. But the line 1, line number has always been a column. So this column right here that I'm pointing my cursor at, that's the line number column. That's always been there. These are all the measure columns. Those have always been there. But this section here was never in the Oracle table, right? And now it is. This is now the line number label column. You'll have all these values in that line number label column, right? So another thing, some of our tables in the different statement types are uniform across all the statement types. And assets, conveniently enough, that I've been talking about it, happens to be one of those uniform tables. The assets table are the same line numbers, same column name for every single statement type: life, fraternal, property, casualty, title, health. All 4 statement types, it's the same exact table. And so because of that, since it's an identical table, we can collapse all the different statement types of the assets table into one table. And we named that U assets for uniform assets, right? And so just like when we brought in the L2023 assets and the L2022 assets and we added data year to the L assets table when we did that, now that we're bringing in the L assets, the P assets, the T assets, and the X assets, X is for health. Now that we're bringing all those in, we now have U assets, and we have to have this new statement type column so that when you're in the U assets table and you want to deal with a specific statement type data, you can still select that statement type and only get that data from it. But this is a very convenient table for anyone who's working with groups, because no longer do you have to go join to the property assets table, the life assets table, et cetera, to get to all the data for each individual legal entity in the group. Instead, you come to the one table U assets, and in that one table, you can get total net admitted assets for every company in the group with just using that one table. So it's really, really handy, especially for doing things like that with groups. And this is just that visual for that. So the L assets, the P assets, the T assets, the X assets, all into this U assets table. All right, so those are the things we've really done for the financial statement table specifically, but we've also taken the same concept of how can we enhance utility when dealing with certain tables. And so the company table is a key table in our FDR database, of course, and a lot of other places, because this is where we store all the co-code data and the information about each legal entity co-code. So it's a very important table. And again, in the past, the company table had certain codes within it. And when I would look at a code, it would be like code 12 for a company type. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And for me to know what that is, I would have to join the company table to another company type table so I could go get the English language description of what that code 12 was, right? Well, that's not very handy, right? And there are a lot of those types of code tables. So you might be joining to 8 or 9 different tables to get all the things you might want from the data from the company table. We didn't want that to happen, right? So instead, we brought all of that data into a new company consolidated table in the enterprise data platform. So in that company consolidated data, you can get group code and group name. You don't have to go and join to a group table to find that group name for that group code any longer. You can get state of domicile, which is the state abbreviation, and you can get the full state name, which is the SOD state name. And then filing type code and filing type description, it used to just have the code, I or C. It's pretty easy to learn those two, but if you've never learned them, you don't keep track of them, I for individual, C for combined, you would have to join to another table to get that description in English language of individual versus combined. So we've brought all of those kind of decode columns, if you will, into this one table instead of making people have to go join to all those other tables to get those values that we can understand. And the other thing to point out for this is that the company table, when you're working with this company consolidated table, and this isn't different from the company table in the legacy structure, both the company in legacy and the company consolidated in the enterprise data platform of Penn data structures, both of those only represent the current values for everything that's listed there in that company table. So the current group code and group name. If they changed group codes 5 years ago, you're only going to see the current one in this table. If you're looking for historical data about this company kinds of records, you need the company period consolidated table, which we've done the same dynamic that we did here for the company period consolidated. We brought in all those decode columns so that you'd be able to use them all in one table. So here again is that visual, the company table, the group code table, the company filing table, etc. A lot of these other tables, we've brought in data from all these different tables into this one company consolidated table so that it makes it easy for you to just use that one table to get what you need from it. All right, so that's the financial side of it. And again, that's where my expertise lies. These are slides that my colleague Teresa Cooper gave me to let you know. But just as we were making the data tables more useful on the financial side, MCAS did that, and then they kind of took it to another level. So they've done the same thing we did in terms of append. So they have multiple years in one table instead of a single table for a certain year. They've also added the line number label like we did, but they've also added short insurer name, group code, and group name directly into the MCAS data tables. Now, we didn't do that on the financial side because we have thousands of tables. So they have a little cleaner life. They have a lot fewer tables than we do. So it's a little more convenient for them to do this. But it does make it, if you're working with MCAS, it makes it a lot more user-friendly for you because you don't have to go join the company consolidated table that we just talked about to get the short insurer name, group code, or group name. Those are right there in your MCAS table. So again, we're doing what we can to make your data life easier. You don't have to join to tons of different tables. And besides making that easier for you, even if you're not querying the tables directly, this is making your life easier. You just don't recognize it. Because any developer that's coding an application that has to go use the data that we're talking about, that makes their lives easier, and it makes whatever they're putting out for you to use much more performant. So it'll respond quicker by not having all those joins. So it really does make your life easier, even if you're not recognizing it because you're not going in and directly querying yet. We're going to get you to do that when we get to ThoughtSpot, right? So, all right. So besides that, though, so that they've taken it to another level by bringing in the short insurer name, group code, and group name, but they also collapsed other tables besides that. So the example, I think the more extreme example that Teresa gave me was there used to be in Oracle, you had to join 11 health MCAS tables to get to all the data that you can get in 2 tables in the enterprise data platform, the MCAS Health in Exchange and the MCAS Health out of Exchange. So really collapsed a lot of that so that you don't have to go make all those joins to get to all the information that you're wanting to play with. And here's the visual for that. So 2023 home underwriting table, 2022, this is just for the append side of it. I don't have a visual for all the other parts of it, but you get it from the description. All right, so talking about the file naming conventions, and again, this is the financial data size. So the Oracle table, this is how things were named in the Oracle table size. So the first digit of your table name, this is the database table name, right? So the first digit is the statement type. So L for life or fraternal, P for property casualty, T for title, and X for health. And then the second through the 5th digit of that table name in Oracle was the data year. So the 4-digit data year, 2023 or 2022, et cetera, right? The tricky one is the 6th digit. The 6th digit can be a special character, or it cannot be a special character and just start the normal name of the table. But the special characters can be A for a separate account, that's a life concept, or Q for quarterly, which is a concept for all the statement types, right? So the example one that we have here is L2022A assets, that A in red, that indicates that that's a separate account assets table, right? If it was just the annual statement assets table, that red A would be missing. It would just say L2022 assets. Same thing for the write-in schedule, right? So at the end of that, it says also L2022A assets write-in. That's the separate account assets write-in table. Example 2, L2022Q assets. So L for the life and fraternal statement type. The next 4 digits for the data year, and then that 6th digit of Q is for quarterly, and then that next 7th digit begins the actual name of the table. Note that we don't use that. Again, that Q is for all statement types, right? But A is just for the life and fraternal, just for separate accounts. So if that 6th digit is not a special character, that again, it just begins the name of the table itself. So L 2023 assets. Without the A, without the Q, it's just the annual statement table name. And then, so again, though, the next slide we're going to talk about, since we've appended those data tables in the enterprise data platform, we get to remove those 4-digit calendar years, right? So L assets, not L 2023 assets, LA assets for separate account. So LA assets, the A, 2nd digit A is the separate account indicator. And then the assets table itself is straightforward. L assets, P assets, X assets. Same with the write-in with the W behind it, right? And then page 4, the assets is straightforward, but like some of the other tables are not, because from one statement type to the next, the names aren't quite the same in the blank, and so the database names aren't the same either. So like the income statement, L sum op, P statement income, X Rev X1 or Rev X2, and then title is operation OPINEX. So And then similar for state pages, those are different as well. And then the other thing that I know is the notes to financial statements, they're just crazy names, right? You have to abbreviate so much that it's really hard to tell those. So we can help you with those. We put together a table list for people who are going to use ThoughtSpot that makes that easier. But you can just contact me or other staff.
Okay, but I should cut out the
Hello?
board in the text.
All right, thank you. All right, Jason, you want to take over now?
Yeah, sure thing. And just to kind of expand on what Todd just mentioned is, he did a great job of explaining the financial data set that he lives and breathes, and the MCAS data set, but we didn't stop there. I mean, those were the first things that we were looking at. In fact, those weren't the first things. The first things we were looking at were complaints and regulatory action. That data is available there too. And we did a similar thing where we had many, many tables, lots of data. And what we do is we go through the data platform and try to make the data much more consumable for everyone. But again, we've added a lot of data sets since MCAS, SBS, SURF, UCAA is in works, opt-ins is in works, SBS, if I think I might have mentioned that one already, it's kind of going live now, and homeowners, formerly known as PCMI, all of this data is in the platform somewhere. Investment data was just added as too. And so we're getting a lot more out there and being able to present that to you inside the enterprise data platform. And that's really what the enterprise data platform is. It can simply be described as a collection of data tools or services, technologies that allow us to collect, store, transform into a usable format, secure, and deliver to our end users. And when we were building this and trying to get all of that data out from all of our different systems and collect it into one central location for these tools and these services to be able to access and deliver it to you, we landed on what is normally referred to as kind of a data lake architecture or a medallion architecture, where you have these 3 data layers where the data is moved through one data layer into the next and is transformed, curated, and delivered to the end user. And so I want to talk a little bit about the data layers if you're not familiar with them. I say medallion architecture because they're typically referred to as bronze, silver, and gold data layers. Bronze being the first and gold being what you use to consume the data. Of course, at the NEIC, that didn't, we renamed it because we wanted to give it the name, something more meaningful that made sense to everyone using it, both internally and externally. So at the bottom, our bronze layer, we refer to as the raw data layer. This is the data that we collect from all of our different systems, our legacy systems like FDR and MCAS that collect those annual and quarterly statements, or third-party systems like, census or other investment data, or just data that we subscribe to that we can bring on and add more value to our existing NEIC data. The data from the raw data layer then moves up to the exploration data, where we do a little bit of curating, and then finally into that gold, that business data layer, where you are able to consume it. Next slide, please. And so just to elaborate a little bit on each data layer, I mentioned like that raw data layer, we pull all those different data sets in, and it's important to know, like, we get data in all kinds of different formats from different vendors. Some folks will send it into a CSV file or maybe an Excel file. We get some unstructured data as well. We get a lot of data from our existing legacy and new systems from databases directly, but those are even transformed into files that we can consume from a data lake like file architecture. And it's important that on that raw data layer, it's immutable. Like, we receive that data and it does not change. And from there, we find value in that data, right? And then we move it up into our exploration data layer, the EDL. This is where we through the data, we take it from a type 1 or type 2 data and turn it into a type 1 data, the most recent record for that row. Maybe we take a CSV file or maybe another type of file, and we make it more tabular, like a good old-fashioned table that you would see in a database. And this is also where we'll do any kind of cleansing, like it's supposed to be a phone number, but I'm seeing alpha characters in there. Let's fix that up. Or a good common one that we see a lot is zip codes. Like, you think a zip code is a number because it it's typically a number, but numbers don't start with 0. And if you're not on the East Coast, you might not know that there's a lot of zip codes that start with a 0, right? And so when you look at a zip code, you're like, why is this only 4 digits or 5, why isn't it the full digits? It's because they provided that data in a number format when it should be a string. So we take the time in our exploration data layer to implement our data standards, right? Make sure that we're using the right data types, make sure the format of the data is appropriate where we can, right? There's some cases we can't do that because it's as received and contractual, we can't change that, but at least we can look at it and verify, is it meeting a format? Will it impact us downstream, right? So we use that exploration data layer to do a lot of the cleansing. And this is also where we'll create new data as well. So calculations is a great example. We'll take certain fields that, Todd was just showing you, and we'll do calculations on it and then create new data sets from that, right? And then from there, once we have all that information, then we move it up into that business data layer. And this is where we create those super constrained or very curated data sets for you to consume. No more, like Todd was, make the utility good. No more joining 3 or 4 tables together. Let's take that data, put it together like you want to see it, and present it into the BDL and then onto our end users. A great story was line number label. One of the things Todd just mentioned, that red box, like this normally isn't a part of the data. I want to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was talking with users where someone said, I'd love to have that in there. And it did not take any time at all in our data pipeline in that exploration data layer to just simply add that and add that utility. In our old system, and I'm not a developer, I'm a data person through and through, but adding data sets in there that you have to change code, you have to publish it, and data pipelines are much more lightweight. And so we're able to have a lot of flexibility and move quickly when we want to take different data or new data and add that into an existing data set and present it to you. And we have a pyramid here, and the reason we showing it like that is to kind of illustrate that we pull in a lot of data. In that raw data layer, we get tons of data, but not all of it is useful, at least not immediately. There might be some kind of ancillary data around these records that might not make it up into the EDL because there's no value in it, but we keep it. And the same thing in the EDL, we're collecting a lot of data, but when we get it into the BDL, we're giving you just what you need or what you're wanting, right? And so there's a lot more data in the RDL, and again, it kind of bends its way up into the BDL. So we're just giving you the value, the data value that you're looking for. And so that's important to note, because that we always have the data, right? And it could be years from now, someone's like, hey, we got 5 years worth of this data that we haven't made any use of, because at the time there was no value in it, but now we have value in it, and we have 5 years worth of it, right? And so it's important with that raw data layer that we're collecting a lot of the data and keeping to our data retention standards, but we have all of that information. So you never know when we can make use of this information. Next slide. So just to touch a little bit more on the business data layer, that top of the pyramid where you all access the data. In all of those different data layers already on EDL, we still kind of separate the data by data domain or data type. We have a box, if you will, for all the financial data, and then the market data is kind of in its own area, and it's all interrelatable, like they're joined together. We can make joins and use of that data within the system, but as a part of organizing and securing the data, we kind of have them separated out by the data set or data domain. In the business data layer, we add another layer to it on how the data is going to be accessed. So you see 3 boxes here, and these schemas are basically just holding areas for the data. We have a general schema. And so like maybe for the financial data set, we have a general schema with all of our financial data in it. And that's just generally available data in a very easy to use format, right, for people to consume. But then we also have these other schemas as well, the BI and app schemas, because those systems, imagine Power BI or Tableau or ThoughtSpot, they might want to consume that data, or they may consume the data better if it's formatted in a different format. Some users like seeing data, 80 columns wide, but maybe 1 million rows, and can see that data and it all makes sense, right? And that's fine, especially when you're looking at it with human eyes, like that's perfect, right? but Tableau may perform better and make more use out of it if it's maybe fewer columns and a lot more, maybe 20 columns and 5 million rows, right? And so we have the flexibility with the enterprise data platform, and we made sure we had that flexibility to be able to show the same data sets in multiple layouts for the tool or person consuming it, right? So again, like everything Todd said, we want to make sure when you're working with the data, it makes sense and it's easy for you to consume. The last thing I want to hear is like, Jason, I just don't use it because it's too complex, right? That's what we're trying to solve here, is to make accessing the data and working with the data fun, or hence playground. But we also want to make sure there's a great utility and access from our BI tools as well. Again, my developers are the same way, and I say my developers, my colleagues who are developers are the same way. I'd say build the table, the model, how you want to consume it. If you are writing code against it, what makes it easy and easily to maintain for you? The data pipeline is really lightweight. It's easy to adjust. Code has to be published, regression tested, and everything again. So let's make it easy as possible. So that business data layer where everyone is consuming the data, it's not just for end users, it's for our applications as well. And we can be confident knowing that we're all accessing the same data, right? And so very important, just high level on the business data layer. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And here we have a little diagram I wrote a while back. It's an architectural diagram of our enterprise data platform. I'm very proud of this because I'm a visual person, but I'm not good at creating things. I'm sure I failed art class somewhere, or maybe just passed along, because I printed off and it's sitting on my parents' refrigerator at home. But this definitely has shows you that holistic, very high level look at how the data flows from one end of the data platform into that raw data layer and out to our users on the business data layer side. So on the left-hand side, you can see some of our legacy systems, right? Where we're pulling data from FDR, MCAS, and pulling that data and putting it into that raw data layer, that first set of boxes on the left in the enterprise data platform box. And that's not just our Oracle databases, but we're getting data from other areas as well, RDC. The regulatory data collection system provides data as well, and all these new systems that we're working with, they'll put their data in the raw data layer, and then our data pipelines will start working with the data and moving them up from that RDL system into the exploration data layer, where we can work with the data, do that light transformation that I mentioned. This is also the opportunity for all of our future machine learning work that we're all working. I'm sure you guys all hear about it when you talk with Surf and AI and all these things that we're working on. This is where any kind of model training would occur with the data, and the enterprise data platform is in that exploration data layer. And then from there, highly curated and ready to present in that business data layer. And then on the very far right, we see our internal staff and our external customers, our regulators and customers, right? And you see us there on the right, you guys there on the right-hand side, accessing a Snowflake reader account. And I didn't touch on this very much elsewhere in this presentation, but it's important to note that with a part of the enterprise data platform, our Snowflake system in particular, we created reader accounts for every state jurisdiction to access. And not every state took us up on this, right? Some jurisdictions are like, pass, we don't need that level of data access. They're fine with other tools that the enterprise data platform offers, like Tableau and ThoughtSpot, but it's an option for you too. So if you think more about this, if you're not using it today, definitely inquire, does your state have a Snowflake system where I can access this data? And if it does, let's get you access. Start working with the data or looking at it. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. If you don't have one, reach out and we can try to get one for you. But it really affords you the ability to hook up, not only use the tools that we provide, but hook up your own tools. A lot of states, a lot of users may have their own data analytics systems that they have on-prem that they want to work with. And that Snowflake reader account gives you the flexibility to hook your own tools up to it. So you don't have to rely on the tools, the amazing tools that we provide for you with ThoughtSpot and Tableau and others, but you can hook your own systems up to it as well, where you feel comfortable working with the data. So that's always an option as well. Next slide.
All right, so I'll pick back up here, I think. Is that right? Yes. So we're going to talk about the data access and analysis tools. So the enterprise data platform sponsor tools, and I believe Jason just answered one of the questions I saw pop up in the chat, but we'll talk about that a little bit more here as well. But so for the enterprise data platform, we do have data access and analysis tools that we sponsor. So those are Snowsight, which acts, it's the front end user interface to Snowflake, right? It lets you query directly in Snowflake tables. So it's similar to SQL Developer or Toad in terms of how you're writing the queries. We have Tableau, but that's a Tableau license for specific NAIC staff who use Tableau to create things, dashboards, for you all to consume, but you're not able to create a dashboard in Tableau from the NAIC side, right? You don't have a license from the NAIC. You can just use and consume those dashboards that NAIC staff create for you. ThoughtSpot, on the other hand, is a business intelligence tool, a data access and analysis tool that, because it licenses by row of data, we can allow all of you as regulators to be licensed users of ThoughtSpot. So you're creators and editors in ThoughtSpot, which is awesome. We also have EDP supported tools, and that's what Jason was just talking about, and what gets to the question that I saw come up in chat earlier. If you're using Power BI or SAS, or you're used to coding in Python, or anything that has an ODBC connection that can make to Snowflake, you can get access to those Snowflake tables, ODBC connection, and then you play with that data in the tool of choice that you like, right? So that's are supported, those things. Now, many people have worked in MS Access, probably are familiar with Quick Links that Kim Eichstadt has created for many years and supported. Why aren't we talking about that? Because Microsoft has for a very long time been broadcasting that it will stop supporting MS Access at some point. Now, it keeps postponing the date as the year nears, the deadline nears where they say they're going to stop supporting it. They push it out. But since they keep saying that they're going to stop supporting it, we can't feel comfortable saying it's an enterprise data platform sponsored tool, because if it's going away, we don't want to keep people using it. So we're trying to point people to slowly roll into something else like ThoughtSpot instead of that, or have Tableau dashboards created that address those needs, etc. All right. So I think the next few slides just show some visualization, some just screenshots of what those different BI tools look like. So this is just an example of an MCAS dashboard. So someone at the NAIC creates this Tableau dashboard, and they create in it various filters that you can use as a consumer to select and change the filter. So like here, reported jurisdiction. They've coded it in Tableau to where it lets you select your state jurisdiction. And so when you're using this dashboard, you can go and make the change from Missouri to Kansas to California, et cetera, right? What you can't do is say, oh, I think I want to bring in a new filter for state of domicile. Well, you can't do that because you're not in Tableau as a licensed user. You're only a consumer of a Tableau dashboard. But this is that screen that you would see as a dashboard user. And then as you select your filter, then the next slide would bring up the result of the data that you filtered in that Tableau dashboard, right? So there's lots of these that exist throughout the NAC. I'm not trying to dog Tableau. I'm just trying to point out the differences between them, and that you all can't use our licenses of Tableau, so you can't create and edit in it. However, I will also say that Tableau is much better for things that you want to be able to really minutely customize in terms of presentation and like pagination of how things get reported in or get printed out in a report, right? Tableau is much better for those types of things. So pros and cons to everything in life, right? So that's the example of that. Now, my love, the one that's dear to my heart, is ThoughtSpot, just because besides that difference I already talked about with Tableau, the licensing difference, the other thing is that, like, I don't have time, I don't need data frequently enough to make it worth the brain cells I would have to keep on hand and set aside to keep up with remembering how to do SQL queries, and learning and remembering how to do Tableau dashboards. Because I looked at it when we picked up Tableau, and I'm like, oh my Lord, that's still a lot. That's too much for me. I'm not ready for that. And then Jason brought in ThoughtSpot, and I looked at this, and I'm like, oh man, I could use this. This one is great because it's very light. It's a light touch in terms of learning. It's a lot of pointing and clicking to build your queries and then point to run. A lot of powerful insights that you can get very quickly. You have, I haven't showed them. I'm just showing data tables here. But you can also have, so this is a data table of an answer where you create a query and you save it as an answer. And then this is where I've pinned 2 different answers into a live board. So a live board is just a container that lets you pin 2 or more answers in it so that you can look at those answers results at the same time instead of having to open one versus the other. I've only shown data table results here, but this right here that I'm pointing out, this is the view table, and this is the view chart. So it's a toggle in ThoughtSpot. You can view table data or you can view chart data, and you get to select the chart type, etc. And they've really made charting a lot more powerful in ThoughtSpot than it used to be. So there are a lot of options for charting now. Again, if you're really looking to publish and make things really, really, really pretty and precisely edit and prescribe how things are going to be, this isn't going to let you do that nearly as much as Tableau does. But this lets you do it instead of having to rely on any staff member to do it. So the other thing that I'll say about ThoughtSpot is that these answers right here and these live boards right here, I can create one of those, say, in 20 minutes. And if I'm working with a specific regulator, and that's why I've created the answer or the live board, I can then immediately go out with a few clicks of the mouse and typing in a name. I can immediately share that answer for that live board with that specific regulator. They get an email. It tells them I shared it with them. They open ThoughtSpot, and it's right there for them to begin using and consuming immediately, right? So a lot quicker, a lot easier to share those types of things as we go forward. Let's see. The other thing that before Jason gets into that, I want to say something else. So I'll wait. I'll save it for the portal discussion, Jason. So I'll go ahead and let you go.
You know, the nice thing about ThoughtSpot is it's a SaaS tool. It's one of those tools that we like Todd mentioned, that we picked up to complement the enterprise data platform, right? And how we can deliver data. And it's a SaaS offering. And that team, that ThoughtSpot team, is constantly making improvements. And Todd and I meet with our client success person frequently, and they are aggressively coming out with new features, and we are exploring those options as well. And one of the nice things that someone kind of mentioned is that it's really good at showing the data, like Todd mentioned, and he likes looking at table data, which is great. I do too. But like visualizations are fun as well, right? You kind of, sometimes it kind of hits different when you can take a bunch of numbers and then show it as a pie chart or a bar chart. And that's one of the things where ThoughtSpot, they had a lot of options, but they weren't as beautiful as what you could do in Tableau. Well, they're constantly changing, and they were just telling us the other week how they're really expanded their chart library, right? And so now, if you are just wanting to build something a little, very pretty that you would maybe look at Power BI or Tableau to do, again, if you're comfortable with it, by all means, use whatever you're comfortable with. But now this is expanding these options as well. So don't sit on ThoughtSpot if you initially looked at it and you're like, yeah, it's not for me because they don't have a charts that I like. Go back and look at it again, because they really are expanding their options. And now on to Snowsight. So next slide. In Snowflake, it is basically, they call it the data cloud warehouse or the AI warehouse. They keep changing their names for whatever meets the buzzwords of the times, right? But it's basically, it's a SaaS offering as well, but it is a data warehouse. It's an online cloud data warehouse. And as such, you can access it like you can access any database. And one really nice thing outside of like Oracle and Postgres, you have to have a client to be able to work with the data in an Oracle database or Postgres or MySQL database. But with Snowflake, they have a web user interface right there that you can access just from the internet. which is great. And you have all the same capabilities you would have in any other database. You can go through the data and look at all the tables that you have access to. You can write queries and access the data as well. So, and what's really nice is, again, like the SaaS offering, they're constantly making changes to it, which is a little bit frustrating for Todd and I, because they make changes so frequently. When you make a screenshot like this, it doesn't last very long. This is perishable. Like, this will change in a month or two and look maybe completely different, right? But the usability is still the same. In fact, it probably is expanded because they're adding more features to it. But you can look and explore the data. You can find some of those data sets that Todd was mentioning. You know, if you're looking for L assets, you can search on that and it'll show you that information right there. You can see all the columns and everything, the comments on the columns that we've provided in there. So you can get a good idea of the data that you have access to, and you can really explore the data fairly easily in this tool as well. I will tell you, to really take advantage of this tool, you need to know maybe just the teensy amount of SQL, structured query language, in order for it to work. But Snowsight has all of the data, all of the years of data that we prepare and share with you is available in Snowflake. And so if you're needing 12 years worth of data, it can be available there. And again, with Snowflake, now outside of the visual Snowsight UI, you can hook your tools, your own tools up to it, Power BI or Tableau or whatever. We can work with you on hooking your tools up. And someone asked the question and I responded in thread. I hope you got it. But if you have any questions about hooking your tools up to Snowflake, shoot me an email, jhughes@neic.org, and we'll get you set up. We do have to create a service account for you, but we can knock that out. A lot of people use it. Some folks, this is the preferred method to access the system. And so here is just a screenshot of writing a very simple query and getting the data back. And on the right-hand side down in the bottom, I just want to highlight where it says query details. You can't scroll down, but it'll show you all of the data kind of profiled at histograms of all the data. So like a max and min, and you can see like company active status. It tells you exactly how many are active and are inactive. And you using that bar, you can like go in and query and filter the data without having to write any more SQL. It'll just start filtering and working with the data for you and give you that high profile level. Next slide, please. Also in Snowsight, you can create some visualizations as well. They have an idea of creating dashboards as well. And there's a lot of utility here, and this was one of the dashboards that Kim Eichstedt, I believe, created a while back when we first got started with Snowflake. And she was able to share this with, this might be Missouri, so right, you're able to share that with the Missouri users. So they went and log into to Snowflake using their NEIC credentials. This is one of the dashboards they can see, and this provides potentially valuable information for them to do the work. And they didn't have to write any of this, right? Kim wrote it, or someone else from the team could write it, just like in ThoughtSpot, and share that with the group. So you have the capability to do that here in Snowflake as well using Snowsight. I think, yeah, no, next slide.
All right, so that's all things that we've been working on for many years, right, Jason? We know each other too well by this point. So the next section is really the newer piece of what we're bringing into the enterprise data platforms. And so the enterprise data platform is all about the data itself, right, and making the data available and giving you direct access tools to it. NAC Data Portal is kind of a similar concept. Is that just as we had all the different silos of data all in different places around the NEIC, and we brought all those different data tables into one place in the enterprise data platform, well, the same thing exists if you think in terms of tools that have been created for you all as regulators, whether it's an application for a specific database, whether it's a Tableau dashboard that's been created so that you can manipulate data and get a certain report a certain way, or whether it's even a ThoughtSpot answer or live board that's been created, or something else, right? Those get created and put in various locations across the NEIC's technical universe, if you will, right? And so they can be out there everywhere. And the concept of the enterprise data platform is to bring all of those things into one specific location so that you all only have to go to that one location, the NEIC data portal, And anything and everything data, tool related, etc., you get from getting to that one place instead of having to remember where the other places are, having bookmarked them some way, etc. Right? So that's the high level concept that we're talking about. So this is the slide that really shows that like the enterprise data platform is here inside the middle of the spokes, but there's all these different spokes are leading out to different applications, different tools, different reports, etc. Right? And we're wanting to fix that by bringing it into this one little. It's going to be a vast world, right? So this huge nebulous here. Everything gets pulled into this, right? We sucked everything into the NSE data portal. So access to those apps, the tools, the reports, the raw data, anything and everything about data to get access to it will be at the NAIC data portal. And we are just in the brand, we're just now really getting to the point of being able to show this, visualize it. So in the next like half year or so, by next year for sure, we're wanting to start getting to a point where we can start rolling this out and getting more feedback from people. But this is our initial concept screen. So at the top here, there's a hamburger menu right here, and this is just a picture, so I can't make it work right now. It's not a demo. But this hamburger menu here, you click on it, and it drops down to give you direct access to the tools like Snowflake, Hotspot, Atlan, which is our enterprise data catalog for anyone. Now, also Tableau if you're an internal user. But this is where you go just to go out into ThoughtSpot to build a brand new answer yourself, go create a live board, go into Snowflake to run a query yourself, right? Just gives you direct access to those tools. Because right now, to get into ThoughtSpot, it's a web address, right? I favored it out in my internet browser, and I click it there and go into that. So this will bring all those direct accesses to the different tools into the data portal. But everything below it is for things that have been created for you. So up here in the hamburger menu, things where you go get direct access so you can create. Everything below here, an NAIC staff person has built something, created a report, etc., and that we call those assets. And so that's what the rest of the screen is all about. So the concept is that as you get into the NAIC data portal for the first time, you have all these different categories, right? And say you're a financial person, you click on the financial category, and when you do so, things pop up under here under the financial assets. So it'd be like a ThoughtSpot report, answer, a ThoughtSpot live board, a Tableau dashboard, a Snowflake query result, right? So Jason might have ran a query on L assets that he thought was pretty cool that a lot of people might use, and he just popped that out here for you. You wouldn't have to go in. You wouldn't have to go up here to go to Snowflake and create that query or even find that query. Instead, it's an asset right here for you to click on, get into, and immediately use, right? So all those types of assets would be under the financial category. Same with the Insurance Department Resource Report, MCAS, SBS, so all the different categories, right? So you click on the category or categories you're interested in. We're going to have some way of favoriting or selecting which things you want like consistently to access, right? And so that concept is you've built your listing, if you will, of things that you regularly want to use. And then as you're working in it going forward, as new assets get brought into the portal, they'll pop up here. So it might not be 90 days when we get to a live, maybe it'd be 30 days, maybe it'd be 45, whatever it is. But right, the concept is that you've built something from the first time as things were available, and then as things come on, you get a chance to say, oh, hey, there's a company summary that's now available. I might be interested in that. Let me go click on that and look at it. And if you are, then you add it to your favorites list or your preferences, right? So that's the concept of the NAIC data portal. Again, it's kind of the one-stop shop for anything and everything. And what I've just described is what we're focusing on working with right now, but we're going to keep expanding functionality and utility of the portal as well. So we're going to bring in documentation about data assets, right? We're going to bring in ways of searching for PDFs at some point, right? And as we roll forward in the future, I also want to remind people we are re-engineering the financial data repository, the FDR database, which is the database that collects the insurance company's statutory financial statements. We are re-engineering that. So in the next 3 to 4 years, we'll be in a brand new system. And because of that, and for other reasons, all of the eyesight reports have to be looked at and get out of the Oracle data and into the enterprise data platform Snowflake data. And as we're looking at them, we're going to be looking at rebuilding them into current technology, right? Maybe a ThoughtSpot answer or Liveboard would replace it. Maybe a Tableau dashboard would replace it. Or maybe it's something that our developers still have to code, but it will be new code. As those things get built, they will come into the NAIC data portal. So eventually, the NAIC data portal will truly be one-stop shop for anything and everything data related. And I think I saw a chat pop up. This is where we want you to ask questions. We want you to contact us for sure if you have any interest in the data things that we've talked about. If you're interested in using ThoughtSpot, I've been doing ThoughtSpot training for a lot of different states. I do those in person. I travel. It's no cost to the state. I travel to the state and provide in-person training. If it's only a few people and you guys don't go into the office, I'm happy to do a virtual one. It just doesn't work very cleanly if it's virtual for a large number of people. It's just not very effective. But anyways, ThoughtSpot training is available. After the training, I'm still available to have one-on-one sessions, to respond to emails with questions and tutorials and all that kind of stuff. So I'll stop talking there. Jason, if you want to chime in anything, go ahead, and then we'll let people ask questions.
No, yeah, absolutely. I did put on the chat. We do have an email, kind of, by all means, send me an email and Todd an email. That's fine. We do have a group email, not just Todd and I look at it, but other people as well. So if you want access to a system, or if you just have general questions about data in the enterprise data platform, please send an email to, I put it on there, and dataaccessinfo@neic.org. And also, I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of different data assets out there. You can see SBS and things like that. SBS is doing sessions on next week on site on Wednesday. I believe they're hybrid. And I put information for those. Colson Douglas, who's the data manager for SBS, is going to be talking about how they're using the enterprise data platform to share data. So if you're interested more on that, please look at those as well. I'm very excited just on this enterprise data portal setup. It's going to bring a lot more capabilities to how you access data, in addition to what we've provided already with Tableau and ThoughtSpot and direct access to Snowflake.
And everything that we've been presenting here, this is all for NAIC staff and regulators, right? Nothing about this is yet for public access. Now, there's a concept that at some day in the future, we may have a public data portal, but it would not be this, right? It might be some separate thing that we build where we provide access for public. But everything we've been talking about, this is for internal NAIC staff and regulators only at this point. Any other questions? And you can come off mute at this point and ask an verbal question. So. Anything online, Jason?
No, someone asked about the sessions for SBS, if they will be recorded and available. I will check on that for sure and get back with you.
Well, if there's no other questions, then we thank you for your time this afternoon. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see everybody at the in-person summit if you're coming next week. And don't hesitate to contact us if you're interested. Please do. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.